Equality and freedom of religion are values guaranteed to United States citizens by our Constitution and are not mere formalities to be discarded in difficult times. With this being said, people typically use the excuse of being afraid to justify why they discriminate against Muslims. The association of perceived abuse and discrimination after September 11, 2001, with psychological distress, levels of happiness, and health status among Arab Americans states that prejudice, discrimination, and violence against Muslims and Arabs has increased since 9/11. Many Americans have Islamophobia, which is the fear, hatred of, or prejudice against the Islamic religion or Muslims generally, especially when seen as a geopolitical force or the source of terrorism. People have stereotyped all Muslims and have caused them to experience discrimination in their education, employment, housing, and social life through hate speech, violence, or ethnic and religious profiling. United States governmental policies have targeted Muslims by having their religious organizations raided by the FBI. Muslims have also experienced racial profiling at airports and on the streets, and they have had their charities' assets frozen. Muslim women wearing visible religious symbols, such as a headscarf, are more prone to be discriminated against because of their religion and also their gender. Negative experiences such as this can cause Muslims to feel isolated within their community. To show the effect that discrimination has had on Muslim lives, the DAAS conducted a survey containing Muslim Arabs and Christian Arabs. This article stated that the survey was administered by face-to-face interviews. Within the survey, 1,389 households were surveyed, resulting in 1,016 adults being interviewed. There were independent variables in this experiment, such as gender, age, marital status, educational level, and household incomes. They examined personal abuse, whether or not they themselves had directly experienced post 9/11 discrimination, and whether or not they feel that Arab Americans are respected. The three outcome variables that were being observed were K10 score, which addresses anxiety and depressive disorders, self-reported level of happiness, and self-reported health status. Of everyone observed, 25% of respondents reported post 9/11 personal abuse or abuse of household members related to race, ethnicity, or religion. In relation, 15% of the respondents reported that they personally had a bad experience related to their Arab ethnicity. Perceptions of not being respected within United States society and greater reported effects on September 11th with respect to personal security and safety were associated with higher levels of psychological distress. With these results, they concluded perceived post-September 11 abuse and discrimination were associated with increased psychological distress, reduced levels of happiness, and worse health status in our sample. The article, Attitudes Towards Muslims Post 9/11, stated that following September 11, 2001, the FBI reported a 1,700% increase of hate crimes against Muslim Americans from 2000 to 2001. During the aftermath of 9/11, Muslims faced an upsurge in negative stereotypes expressed by the larger society. Although Muslim is a religious label and does not pertain to race, the line between racism and religious discrimination is often blurred. Americans seem to think that all Muslims behave and think the same despite the wide ethnic difference that are found within the Muslim American community. This being said, it is unfair to think that just because one Muslim is one way, that all Muslims are the exact same. As stated in Historical Events and Spaces of Hate crimes against Arabs and Muslims in post-9/11 America, we consider the events of 9/11 to be a historical event that transformed Arabs and Muslims into convenient targets for acts of vicarious retribution, defined as an act that occurs when a member or group commits an act of aggression toward members of an outgroup for an assault that had no personal consequences for him or her but did harm a fellow in-group member. After 9/11, Muslims were largely depicted as a unified, coherent, and threatening group consisting of foreigners, extremists, and terrorists. Terrorism has no religion, therefore Muslims as a group has nothing to do with terrorism. This discrimination must be stopped because to judge a whole group of people because of one person's action is unlawful and sick. Something profoundly un-American is aspiring America right now. Americans seem to have an irrational fear and hatred of a group of people because of the group they identify with. People are starting to take the criminals of this world and putting this image on others, including children that have similar identities and groups they belong to. There are many instances in which kids are being blamed for certain terrorist attacks at school just because they are associated with Muslims, and this type of bullying makes these kids not want to go back to school. There should never be a time when kids are scared to go to school and get their education because people are discriminating against others because they are not the same as them. America is about people from different backgrounds, whether it is a different race, ethnicity, nationality, or religion, who have pride in their past and heritage and are willing to come together as one to build a new nation. As Americans, we should put aside our difference and treat everyone, regardless of their identity, with equality and respect and put discrimination to rest.